Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and folks, this week, this is a tough show for me to do, and especially solo. I'm not sure, even with Brian and our little chats that we've had on the side, that we could quite even kind of gauge the proper time to speak about this game, because there are so many outside factors that when you go back to last week's pregame episode that myself and Brian did against the Detroit Lions, it was difficult to do that show because you didn't know what the winless Lions were bringing to the table. But by the time we got to kickoff on Sunday, no Ben Roethlisberger, horrible weather, a whole bunch of injuries within the game that basically made most of the points that we spoke about moot points. So we're at this crossroads once again with a Sunday night contest in Los Angeles against the Chargers, which SoFi Stadium, kind of hosting the Steelers here for the first time. Most of the trips that had been out to previously San Diego and even over to L.A. when they were playing in Carson at the one Major League Soccer stadium was a heavy Pittsburgh Steelers invasion when it comes to the fan base. So we'll see if the away crowd, hence the traveling Pittsburgh Steelers fans, have any influence on this game. But outside of that, there's a lot of other influence, including, oh man, I hate to even bring up COVID-19, but we know how it's already impacted the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger, not a participant in practice all of this week. We will not know anything about Ben's status until Saturday, and according to Jerry Dulac, one of the better beat reporters with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jerry, whenever Jerry says something, it's almost rubber stamped. He's not one to put out any type of hot takes or clickbait stuff. Dwayne Haskins phone thing. Yeah, who cares about that? Like, seriously, like, we're going to pick that out, and that's going to be, or Joe Schobert mentioning about practicing more seriously or whatever. The dude's frustrated that he lost. He just got out of the cold and the wet weather. Jerry is saying, though, however, the Steelers plane leaves at 3 o'clock Saturday for this trip. That's 3 o'clock Eastern time. They're going to be going over and settling into Pacific time for a Sunday night game, Eastern time, afternoon time if you're on the West Coast, against the, and I don't want to call them the San Diego Chargers, the Los Angeles Chargers. So some people are talking as to whether or not can Ben just hop on a private plane or anything like that. I mean, Mike Tomlin, I think, would play Ben Roethlisberger without a week of practice. We've actually seen this happen before. They are game planning with Mason Rudolph because they don't know what is going to happen. I've had people asking me, well, Aaron Rodgers played and, you know, his vaccination status and that different than, I'm not getting into all of this. The NFL protocols, they are what they are. The testing in that is somewhat private, except for when you find out a player is out. The best we can tell you is, or the best any of us know, is that Ben is a major question mark. And if he hops on the plane, what will his status be? Would Mike Tomlin play Ben? 39-year-old Ben Roethlisberger, who has been a little bit rusty here or there. He's finally getting on track, not throwing any interceptions or committing any turnovers, and turnovers have been the bugaboo of this Steelers team when they have lost or tied, as was the case with the Lions last Sunday. When Ben has been perfect, can Ben on no practice doing the same thing? As they mentioned, Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, mentions this is the same kind of process that they did last year with the Zoom meetings and whatnot. So, there's some familiarity there. This isn't necessarily a whole new world for players not practicing or being in certain meetings and things of that nature. I just got to wonder, is Ben your best option? And people are going to flame me, you're going to skewer me. I get it. I already got it from the last show in saying that not everything was on Mason. I think with the week's worth of practice, I think Mason is still serviceable. The Chargers, they present a different challenge here. And some people are automatically thinking, well, if they couldn't beat a winless Detroit Lions team, that winless Lions team comes off a bye. They are fresh, fully prepared, ready to go in inclement weather, which could be anyone's game from what we've seen ever when it comes to sports, particularly football. And then on top of that, the Steelers had a short week with Monday Night Football, and I think that with the weather really influence, and overtime. The longer you play, the longer you're out there. This team is tired. They are hurt. They are banged up. There's a number of players on the injury report that I'm going to have to go through. But the Chargers themselves are only a 5-4 football team themselves. They have their own issues. So it's going to be interesting because even if they were at full strength, the Chargers are dead last in run defense in the NFL. Dead last. And I know what you're saying. Well, the Lions were just one in front last week. They were 31st. They were near the bottom. Maybe the Steelers learned a lesson there. Maybe it has to do with the inclement weather. What will happen here with the offensive line? Looks like Trey Turner, one of the question marks for the Pittsburgh Steelers, did practice in full on Thursday. So there is an opportunity for him to still be in the lineup. Kevin Dotson did not. So we're going to see probably J.C. Hassenauer. He's the guy who was active. He is listed as a backup center to Kendrick Green. Does B.J. Finney get a helmet? B.J. Finney's been dealing with back problems. He's a veteran that they brought back that we thought, hey, maybe this was a guy they could have started, and he hasn't quite seen the field at all. So not sure what all the Pittsburgh Steelers staff sees there other than maybe a veteran body that could plug and play if needed. They had to plug and play Joe Haeg, who has primarily played tackle. Yes, Joe Haeg has also been a guard at times, but primarily he's a tackle. I don't see him jumping in there. I think Hassenauer would jump in for Dotson just as he did on Sunday, and he played last year in spot duty as well. So we'll see how that's one of the bigger storylines, but the other bigger storyline is who the Chargers are going to have as far as playing, because their defense, well, they're pretty good against the pass. They've had their troubles against the run, and they've also played the Ravens and the Browns. So it's a large, kind of a padded stat, but still, if you take that off of there, they're still in the bottom quarter of the league against the run, and just lost the game against the Minnesota Vikings. And I got to think the Vikings, they're a very inconsistent and erratic team as well. Their skilled players, I don't feel, are much different than what the Pittsburgh Steelers have to offer. It's just a matter of the Steelers still, I don't know that they have an identity. It's very hard to get an identity when you don't have healthy players on the field. Excuse me, the perils of going solo on the show means I need a tasty beverage. For those of you who can't see, my Steelers mug today is filled with some I forgot what coffee I put in here, but the caffeine was necessary. Gets me nice and hyped up. So who are we talking about with the Los Angeles Chargers being out? Joey Bosa, obviously their version of TJ Watt, maybe not to the same level, but still one of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. Christian Covington on that defensive line, along with Jerry Tillery. These guys, along with Drew Tranquill, linebacker, all four are on this COVID list. They still may have an opportunity to play on Sunday, so keep your eyes on this, because we don't know. Likewise, the Steelers are dealing with the same thing with Minkah Fitzpatrick, and does he make it on the bus, train, plane, whatever you want to say, the trip out to L.A., out to the West Coast? Man, being without Minkah is a big thing. If the Steelers were in full force, and of course they probably will not be, including T.J. Watt, I would feel a lot better about this game, as I understand where all of you are coming from. This is much like the same thing with that wild card game against the Cleveland Browns, and you lose, like, you have a bunch of players that are out. This is kind of in the same territory. You've got Joe Hayden, who didn't practice all week, still awaiting, as of this time of recording, the Friday practice notes, and I'm going to keep an eye on the Steelers and see if there's any report here before I end up signing off on the Friday participation. But Trey Turner did practice. Kevin Dotson did not. As mentioned, TJ Watt has been a scratch all week as well. That's going to be obviously the biggest problem here when you're dealing with fine young quarterback in Justin Herbert and the fleet of weapons that he has. The Steelers cannot get into a shootout with the Chargers. The Chargers, I think, they definitely have guys at all of the skill positions that could make you pay on the offensive side of the ball, and the Steelers on the offensive side of the ball have not been a team to put up a ton of points. However, I'm going to have to point out as well that the Chargers have lost 3 of their last 4 Despite coming off a bye week, they lost by 3 to the New England Patriots, won by 3 against the Philadelphia Eagles, and played another tight game last week against the Minnesota Vikings in a 27-20 loss at home. So going back to back at home, they didn't relinquish as many yards in that. I'll take that back. They didn't accrue as many yards as an offense against Minnesota, which that defense is is the way I would say it with Minnesota. We'll be seeing Minnesota and the Steelers here in about a few weeks, I think about 3 weeks' time here on a Thursday night game that I'm not looking forward to seeing them go on the road and play in Minnesota on a short week. Hopefully the Steelers can get a little bit healthier here, but just looking at, I think a lot of us saw, particularly, I think it was because of the times of the games, the Cleveland Browns and the Chargers were on and most of our markets, and a lot of us got to see that game, and I think that made us a little more leery of what this team has to offer. Because look, the Chargers beat the Chiefs, they beat the Raiders, who also the Raiders had beat the Steelers, and a Steelers team that wasn't fully equipped and banged up at the same time, but also playing like crap. To put it that way, it was those two games at home that start the season, the Raiders and the Bengals, aside from the injuries, just not their best performances overall. The 47-42 game against the Browns shows that maybe a game could just get loose like this. It'll be more loose, maybe. I don't know, man. It's still tough because I still think Mason can do that. I still think they drove the ball. I still think he connected on some deep balls, and I think if it's drier weather, I just don't want to see the guy pass the ball 50 times because it's still inexperience. Ben Roethlisberger, when he was young, man, they had the clamps on him. All of his offensive coordinators, including Wisenhunt and Cower, they primarily ran the football, and that's what I'd like to see here against a team that struggled to put a lid on the run because they gave up 230. And here's the running yards they've given up all year. Washington football team, 126. They've given up 198 to the Cowboys, 186 against the Chiefs, who are having their own run game issues, although their offense is fighting it. Okay, they held the Raiders to 48, 230 against the Browns, 187 against the Ravens, 142 against the Patriots, 176 against the Eagles, and then 103 last week against the Vikings. I still think Najee, this could be a 100-yard game for him, and this is the guy you want to lean on. But I still think the Steelers can get some other guys into that rotation. As funny as it may sound, Benny Snell, a couple carries here or there, hasn't been too bad. I've been really down on Kalen Ballage just because of the few mistakes that he's made. I was out on Benny Snell up until about a week or two ago. I was really out on him, fine as a special teams player, of course, but I just don't want to see Najee so overworked, which he already is. He's probably going to break I think the rookie record for touches in a season overall. You got a 17-game season. You need this guy in December when it gets cold weather and you want to start really hammering the football. But this is a team I think you can make a statement against, particularly if they're down any of those four guys, and especially if they are down all four of those guys, including one of their starters along that defensive line, Linval Joseph, who is also an excellent defensive lineman. There's a good chance that he's kind of out too. And the cupboards, Old Mother Hubbard's cupboards, are very bare when you're talking about what the Chargers may offer, especially on their defensive side. And this is the reason I'm mentioning their defenses, is it gives opportunities for a Steelers offense that hasn't been consistent, hasn't been very good, and depending on which quarterback that you get, I'm not trying to put Mason Rudolph into Hall of Fame territory. You got to understand where he is in his career, that he's maybe average, and that maybe even what we saw last week could have even been above average play still. He's still kind of an unknown, okay? Ben Roethlisberger, having not practiced at all, don't know what kind of side effects he's had from his illness. It might be like, is he going to be Michael Jordan playing with the flu and dropping dimes on everyone? Or is it going to be a head cold and a fog where he throws 3 picks in a game trying to gunsling it 55 times because the Steelers get behind in the game? That's what will absolutely suck. And that's the kind of game script I don't want to see here. The missing pieces, though, as far as this Chargers defense, the guys that they do have, Derwin James, an excellent safety, a ball hawk, a guy who tackles a lot. He is their Minkah Fitzpatrick. So you see the mirror images here. what did I say? Nasir Adderley is a guy, another guy you got to watch for, along with Chris Harris Jr. And they also have a rookie that we really like during the draft process, Asante Samuel Jr., who plays at the cornerback position as well. So the secondary is very strong for this Chargers team. And this the passing offense for the Steelers, I mean, you got to hope that maybe Chase Claypool has been limited both days, still nursing a toe injury. I have a feeling he's going to be shut down again. So there's one of your major offensive weapons out one more time. Maybe. I'm speculating here at this point. If Joey Bosa is out, there aren't very many backups on the defensive end side of this in the defensive line. You got to hope that even with the injuries that the Steelers are facing and their subpar offensive line, which has shown some push here or there, you got to hope that they could put this together. It's going to be perfect weather with this beautiful stadium. It's going to be Southern California. You can't make any excuses for that. This is one of these places where they're going to host the Super Bowl, so this should be pristine conditions. So none of this should come into a factor to decision making and play calling that you would hope. Let's see what else I've got here listed. It's already talking about their interior defensive linemen. It's like a bunch of who are all of these guys. Pretty much. Don't know. So let's jump over. I'm gonna stop belaboring the Steelers' offense because it could still be a struggle, but I still hope that the defense can put them in an okay position, even if that means that the offense gets some more points off of Chris Boswell's foot. What we got to be looking at here now is that the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously the loss of TJ Watt is the big one. So is Minkah. I think they could overcome the Minkah Fitzpatrick loss a little bit more. We saw some of Miles Killebrew last week. It'll be interesting to see how they use Terrell Edmonds again. Will he be lined up? Jared Cook, very veteran NFL tight end. Donald Parham, I believe he was an ex-XFLer. He does well when his number's called. I won't lie. What are his numbers for the year? I'm going to actually pull them up. 11 catches, 131 yards, but he has 3 touchdowns on the season. The big threat entering this game, of course, the wide receivers and the running back. Running back Austin Eckler, a 3-down back, a do-it-all guy that has 5 touchdowns on the season. He's averaging 4.7 on the ground. He's also caught 39 balls for 340 yards and 4 TDs for a total of 9 touchdowns cumulative over the season. That is very impressive. As far as I'm concerned, Eckler is one of the top backs in the league. The wide receivers, veteran Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has already been targeted 93 times this season, which is he's the most targeted guy on the team, only 2 touchdowns, but also leads all of the Chargers receivers with 698 yards. And then you've got Mike Williams, who went on a tear. This is one of the former first-round picks, one of the top guys coming out of college, has caught 41 balls for 608. He was a deep threat with 6 touchdowns early on in the year. He was tearing it up, but as of late, he's been cooled off. You probably saw that big game where he had eight catches for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Browns, 2 for 27 against the Ravens. Now the Ravens defense, I keep saying the Ravens defense isn't as strong as what everyone thinks they are. They do enough to be successful. That's where the Steelers got to be right now, but still missing some key components. It really sucks. James Pierre in for Joe Hayden. We'll see how that ends up working out. Probably a lot more of Trey Norwood getting more playing time for that rookie as well. Just going to have to keep a lid on these 2 receiving threats. But the teams that were able to, the Ravens, Patriots, and Eagles all shut down Williams pretty much 2 for 27, 2 for 19, 2 for 58. The Vikings held him to 4 for 33. Yikes. So he's cooled off in the last 4 games. Gotta hope he doesn't find his spark or his groove again here against an ailing Steelers defense. What are they going to do without Watt? Melvin Ingram left the team. Melvin Ingram didn't show up on the stat sheet as far as his sacks were concerned, but he did have the quarterback pressures. I think Alex Highsmith's more than capable. We saw how he elevated his game in overtime against the Lions. It's going to be up to Taco Charlton, who I think the Steelers are more comfortable with having him in on more run situations. They get a look in that huddle as far as run defense, and that's where he's going to be in. I'm not sure if they're just going to let him fly against Justin Herbert, who, by the way, Justin Herbert himself on the season, 2,545 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. This isn't a mistake-prone football team. He's only been sacked 16 times. And behind a line that features a former Steelers guard in Matt Filer. So their offensive line actually isn't too shabby. This isn't the same thing as the previous week where I said, hey, there's no dudes here. There isn't anything that really scares me. This is a game that does make me feel uneasy, and it's mostly because of how ill-equipped the Steelers are right now. You could say the standard's the standard as much as you want to say it's the standard, but you got to see some more out of Deontay Johnson. James Washington, they got to support Mason Rudolph. You got to lean on Najee Harris. You got to get the tight ends, Eric Ebron. Hopefully he doesn't try and hurdle someone and for no reason. Pat Freiermuth, ball security, mistake-free football, these type of things. We saw Ray McLeod actually step up last week, which was a good thing. Special teams gets hurt as part of this too. I was ragging on the special teams. Didn't clarify as much as when guys get hurt and they have to do double duty, or you get somebody new that's just filling in. That tends to be an issue too, so the standard still isn't what the standard is. That defensive line for the Steelers still, I don't even know how to address whatever is going on with Stephon Tuitt, other than my own disappointment that he's not on the football field, and it seems like it's going to be a thing for the season, maybe, because it would be great to have him back out there. Now, Chris Wormley has done exceptional in his place, but Chris Wormley's trying to wear several hats, as they're also without Tyson Alualu, and that has not bode well for the Steelers in stopping the run this season. So when you got Eckler, who, let me see, he's only had one 100-yard game all year, but again, as a passing threat and coming out of the backfield, the guy was targeted in games 9 times, 6 times, 5, 5, 7, 10, 3, and 6. Now, last week, he did get a touchdown, but he was only 3 of 15. The Vikings held him for 44. If they could button up here and hold against the run, then I still think Herbert obviously isn't Jared Goff. Herbert and his wide receivers, they're all the real deal. It's going to be tough because you're without Minkah Fitzpatrick. You got Miles Killebrew, who's been floating around as a linebacker/safety. Do you have Trey Norwood that kind of floats back in there? I'm not even sure who else the Steelers might have on the roster that can help out in this situation, unless they try and position Cam Sutton, and then now you're having to deal with, or Arthur Millette. There's another guy there as well. This might be a game where Akello Witherspoon actually gets a helmet again. He's been inactive. That's the guy they traded for from the Seattle Seahawks just for more depth. But Justin Lane has been getting some. And Justin Lane was pulled almost immediately last week. It almost just seems like he is just up here. It's just not. It's not processing. He's not. His situational awareness for the game is not there. And I also think his physicality has been lacking a little bit too. But whose wasn't last Sunday? They weren't getting off blocks. They weren't making tackles. You can't have this sloppy stuff. I think Marcus Allen's another guy that's kind of forgotten on this roster too. You don't see or hear a whole lot of him. He switched from safety to linebacker. Can he be able to help pitch in as far as the efforts for making up? It's just really difficult for me to look at all this stuff. Cam Hayward's he's a grown-ass man. What's Cam Hayward going to do? Can we see more out of Isaiah Loudermilk? Does he step up? Does he become like one of these dudes here? Maybe in place of Isaiah Buggs, or does Buggs ascend? Somebody's got to do something, because TJ Watt brings you Defensive Player of the Year quality. Minkah Fitzpatrick brings you all-pro level play. Joe Hayden, Pro Bowl level play. And without those three players, and with the way the inside linebackers have not been playing up to snuff, Devin Bush and Joe Schobert, even Robert Spillane, this could spell trouble for the Steelers, okay? Now, here's the only silver lining in all of this. It's one game, okay? It's a tight AFC North race already. I understand the rest of the calendar looks intimidating. It's intimidating for the whole AFC North. So there's still some ground that could be gained, even if this is a game that they end up dropping. That's what makes the Lions one hurt a little bit more. We won't lie there. So Taco Charlton, Derek Tuska, as long as they can push the pocket a little bit, maybe they give an opportunity for Hayward. Maybe they give an opportunity for Wormley or Alex Highsmith here. do the Steelers blitz more? They have not blitzed a whole lot this year, but they've gotten pressure without it. And that's because of TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Alex Highsmith, those guys, Chris Wormley. Can they afford to do that? When you send a guy on a blitz, it leaves somebody open on the field. You've already got other guys that might not be ingrained playing a whole lot or playing out of position because of the other injuries that may leave this defense susceptible. So I just ask that the unruly fan base keep all of this in mind and be completely rational and logic fans as you watch the primetime game, because, of course, we all know that's not going to happen. So I guess the best that you could hope for here is a competitive game and not a shootout. I think if the Chargers start putting up points, the Steelers will be hard-pressed to match those points. But you never know. This could be another instance where they just take the handcuffs off Mason Rudolph and everything, and they just start, here, let's just sling it around and see what happens. That could also get ugly too, I won't lie. But you got to hope that they could kind of keep this tight, keep this game a little close. I'm going to bring up some of, let's see, just before we say our goodbyes here, I should look up the line on the game and see where and what everyone is thinking. So let's see, the sports book. Oh, let's see what the bookies have to say here. Got to scroll all the way down since it's one of the primetime games, of course. We have no line on this game? Oh, come on, folks. That's not necessarily true. I am not seeing a line on this game. Let's see if one of our other previous sponsors happens to have it. That's just absolutely incredible. I can't believe that. Okay, let's take a look at the NFL line here. Let's see. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the LA Chargers. Sorry for the brain fart, but I'm not seeing any numbers on this game. And that's kind of, I wonder if it's just we're a little early and they're waiting on some advice here. You can't even put anything down on it. And somebody might see something different when you get on later, but right now, both of our former sponsors are here throughout the year, both the DraftKings Sportsbook and MyBookie. There's no line for the Pittsburgh Steelers and LA Chargers game Sunday night. This is absolutely crazy, and I put myself on the spot because I didn't have it loaded up beforehand because I'm one of the most unprepared people in this profession. But I'm telling you, folks, it's not here. That's wild. I can't believe that. I'm going back one more time just to check, but nothing. The only thing we got is plus 4,500 if you still want to bet on the Steelers winning the Super Bowl, and those odds they've actually been, I won't say better, because if you would have got in earlier, it would have paid out more. But the bookies think they have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl, or at least being in the playoffs, is the way that I should state that. So anyways, those are my 2 cents for this upcoming game. Of course, if the Chargers are shorthanded due to injuries and all of these young men that they have on the COVID list, I think that will be fortunate for the Steelers. I don't know what exactly may happen with Minka Fitzpatrick or some of the other guys, but I would almost count on Ben not making the trip, TJ and Minka not making the trip. Those are my opinions at this time as we get closer to finding out the initial kind of inactives and who's already going to be ruled out from the Friday's practice. So once again, folks, my name is Joe Kuzma, and we'll be approaching Turkey Day. Got it up there already. That's a fun, terrible towel. I like to be a little bit festive here. Hopefully we can enjoy the weekend heading into the holiday the following weekend with some turkey, and we don't have to worry about watching the Steelers or preparing to watch the Steelers on a Thursday Thanksgiving night in a game that doesn't end up happening until a Wednesday afternoon like last year. So anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, have fun, leave pleasant, positive comments, all the good vibes. Hopefully the Steelers, they tend to surprise us in these situations. You know what I mean? You can never expect the unexpected, especially with the NFL. The way the NFL has been going, you just never know. And I know a lot of people say, well, the Steelers play down their competition, we could have expected that with the Lions. But a lot of them are already throwing in the towel for the season, tank to get a quarterback in the first round, whatever it is some of yins are saying out there. It's all nonsense. let's play the game. Let's see what ends up happening. That's why they actually have to play the game. So take care. And as always, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.